and there's the nice thing about it is it has a. I really wish I had brought the name. You know, I like that really bothered me. I think it is a Weber, but there's a little contraption where you pull the side open, and it like opens up almost like not like R2D2. That's what we call it. This pouch, and you can continuously feed the like smoke chips, water, and help regulate the temperature that way. Anyway, so yeah, when you hot smoke fish, another word for it is kippering it in this like specific tradition that I like to play into of Jewish smoked fish. And so yeah, like I did sort of kipper this slightly, but if you kipper it really slowly and really well at around like 150 degrees, you almost get like a baked salmon that's really moist and juicy. What happened here is I went a little too fast, and that's why I got some of this sheen. But it is really important to understand that, like, even though I cold smoked this today, it does have the smoke does provide some preservation technique. However, hot smoking is really more integral to like having that longevity. It's not going to be that much longer, but it is going to be long. I mean, it'll be longer in refrigeration, but it won't be that much longer than like the cured salmon, really. Like they're both going to go kind of bad around the same time.
So are you going to go to hot smoking now?
We're not going to hot smoke here today.
No, but will you go over it?
Oh, yeah, sure. So...
Could I ask three questions about your setup?
Yeah.
So, is the reason that piece is not like centered over the like opening, is that just because that side's really thin, or because you?
No, it's actually because there was too much airspace here.
Okay.
So this was the only place that I could get it, where I could make sure that there was the least amount of gaps, and where I could just put in the least amount of paper to prevent it from releasing too much smoke off of the sides of the chamber. Okay. So that's why I did that. That doesn't really like concern me as much, because again, the heat source that I was creating for cold smoking was off center.
Yeah.
So like I know that like this isn't really all that hot. Like I would be worried if this had been a very hot chamber, because this side would have been hotter than over here. But the fish is still like, I guess if I was a little bit smarter, I could use the fish up there.
And that was cured first?
Not really. I like I half cured it.
Okay.
You do need to season it before you smoke it. Okay, and here's something very important. If you want to smoke fish, and you're interested in that, you have to make sure that you have this thing called a pellicle form. And what that is you, so you season the fish, you cure it, you lightly cure it. And again, like you can mess around with how much of a brine you want to put it in. I use this same ratio as I use for the cured salmon, and that works really well. You just don't let it like juice as much. Before you are going to smoke something, especially fish, you need to put it onto a wire rack in your refrigerator for a whole day. It needs to be very dry. So I take a towel, I wipe it down, I get all of the like residual salt and sugar off, and I make sure it's super, super dry, and then I let it sit in the refrigerator for like overnight at a minimum. A day is better. It creates this thing called a pellicle. And a pellicle is a skin that forms on the outside of it, and it will create, it's sort of like a waxy surface. When you touch it, it'll feel a little waxy, and you can like smoothly move your hand across it. And what this will do is this creates a surface for the smoke to attach itself to. It isn't necessary. It has no bearing on how well the fish will preserve, or how well it will smoke, or how well it will like actually become a preserved fish, but it will make it taste better, and will make it so that the smoke is more evenly distributed throughout the fish.
Pellicle, P-E-L-I-G-A-L.
P-E-L-I-C-L-E. Yeah. But it doesn't really have any bearing on, again, like how well it will preserve. It's mainly just as a way of like evenly distributing the smoke. And this goes for really anything that you want to smoke. Like any protein that you want to smoke should always have a pellicle before you smoke it.
Kind of with bacon.
Yes, with bacon. It's I have to say it's far more important with meat. Like than it is with fish. I think it's good to get into a practice of having a strong pellicle on a fish, but you don't need to have it as strong as a piece of meat. So that's why I said overnight is fine.
Yeah.
I've definitely smoked fish without a pellicle at all. You know, and that also works. But I think in good smoking practice, it's good to get into the habit. And if you're not using a protein or you're smoking something that doesn't have a meat, you need to make sure that you put some kind of a fat onto it so that the smoke has something to attach itself to. Like if you had a pot of lentils and you really want to smoke those, you need to like put like a good glug of olive oil in there. Otherwise, they're not gonna like. There's nothing for the smoke to attach itself
Is
to.
that just the more oil-soluble flavors in the?
In general, smoke wants to pick up on the fats, and it's going to pull fat out as it's smoking, and it's also going to attach itself to existing fats. And what really is happening with the pellicle formation is some of the fats are coming out of the fish from the curing process and coming to the surface and drying out, and that helps like penetrate the fish. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Anyway.
Con cá này
So that's that guy.
người ta làm hơi chín đấy.
Here. Do you guys have any other questions about that? It can be a little bit like confusing, I get.
So is that dry? I mean, is that the hot?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So the only real difference between cold smoking and hot smoking is that you have a direct heat source. So instead of having the chamber off to the side like this, like Beth was talking about before, there would be a more direct heat that is constantly regulated underneath it.
For how long is it?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If I was going to make like a peppered salmon, which is like a big smoked
Cái này cái nồi người ta dùng mà
pretty much, I think I say about the same amount of time.
để nấu cá,
Yeah, like around,
để làm khói con cá.
around 16.
Người ta bảo là
Yeah,
đừng
like 16
có
hours. You don't
cho
want as long as a cold smoke, 'cause you're gonna
cho
get it, but
khẽ hởi rộng quá, phải cố tống nó lại.
I have done it in 4 hours
Cho
too.
những cái đồ
It just
củi
really depends on
và
like
để
what
nấu con cá.
texture you're going for.
Làm
After
khói
about
con cá.
4 hours, the preservation aspect of hot smoking kicks in. So you have the smoke and the cooking, and it's going to have the like preservation aspect of having enough of the like water replaced by salt and smoke molecules to have it like be more shelf stable.
And in both situations, you want the pellicle.
Definitely. Anything you smoke that is a protein, that is like meat or fish, is a pellicle. All right, I'm gonna bring this last one over to you guys. So this is another final version of preserving fish, and we're gonna do it's a little bit of vinegar pickling. And this is cool because it creates acidity, which is something that we haven't really looked at yet. And that's often really nice to have a little bit more diversity of flavor. And it is, again, it is like pretty shelf stable, but unfortunately, like over time, it just gets more and more and more and more acidic. And so it really will like change. It will soften the fish to the point where it becomes kind of mushy after a while. So like, I personally like to pickle something in vinegar for like a day and then I'm done. Like I want to eat it right away. Because after that, like I just find that the texture gets really unbearable. And so here what I did is I took a bunch of sides of anchovies that I cleaned.
Yummy.
And it's really easy. Like they come with guts in their head. You just pop the head off, run your finger down the center to pull out the guts. Sometimes they have a little bit of scale on them, and you can just wipe that off with your finger, like that. And you want to remove all of these like little guts pieces. And then you can just pull the spine out in one fell swoop. I wish I saved one to show you. I wasn't really thinking. You can also buy these filleted if you prefer to not have it so messy. They also have this little dorsal fin and this little tail fin, you want to take that off too. That doesn't help anyone. And you don't want to eat that. What I did is I just very lightly salted these with a fine salt, not a coarse salt, because you want this to happen really quickly. The coarse salt is better for things that take a couple of days to cure more, to have a slower cure, but anything that you want to do really quickly, you want to use a fine salt. And I just season it so that it like barely covers each fillet on both sides. And I put it skin side down into semi-permeable container like a clay pot or something like this, and lay them all down in a layer. And I make some red wine vinegar at home, so I poured directly out of my barrel actually red wine vinegar. So it's a little sedimenty. A good glug of olive oil, some random herbs I had laying around, some onions to help pickle in the process. And then I made cream cheese for class today, so I took the whey and I poured that on top because it reminded me of like what is the herring and cream sauce. I thought that'd be kind of funny. Yeah, and so then I let this sit for a couple hours at room temperature, and then I put it in the fridge for the next day. And that's it.
You serve the wine vinegar?
I used red wine vinegar. You don't have to use red wine vinegar. You can use
Vinegar, any such vinegars.
Yeah, you can use any type of vinegar. I like to use active vinegars. I like to yep. Do you have some here?
I do. We have vinegar. We have red wine vinegar starter kits.
Cool.
So it's the red wine vinegar mother with a recipe and a nice glass jar as a fermenting vessel. So they're unpasteurized raw product, and really just add red wine and a little bit of water.
So you can actually, if kombucha, right? So
Yep.
you leave kombucha too long, it turns into like you get this nice vinegary type of thing. So you can toss that in as well, right?
Yeah, that might be a whole nother. Kombucha has acetic acid, which is the main component of vinegar, or that is what vinegar is comprised of. But it also has other acids in kombucha. But yeah, acetic. The longer you let it sit, it goes very acetic. But there's other acids that are a little bit more dynamic. But that would be super fun to play with. I've used
For sure.
kombucha in like dressings, vinaigrettes, and marinades. For sure.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that like is sort of like weird about this is like it is a lot of acetic acid, so it is like a very like strong flavored pickle.
Yeah.
Which is why, but that's also why I like it to be a live vinegar. Like using just like a store-bought red wine vinegar will not impart as much flavor. It won't feel as vibrant to me. But you don't have to use red wine. Like Beth has some fun, like that's lacto fermented, but you could use that and probably do the same thing, and that would be really fun too.
We brought I brought lacto fermented pickled cucumbers. So that's just a salt brine. However, through the process of fermentation, it's teeming with lactic acid, which is the preservative, which also has a nice kind of that's an acid as well.
That's kind of why I added the whey. I thought that would be like a
Yeah.
fun way to introduce lactic acid into this.
I guess you could also put in the turbinado sugar in there as well.
You could, yeah. You could put some sugar in there. You could put honey in. Honey, I think honey is actually